The Boston Celtics bench could be getting some needed upgrades. Shams Charania just let all of us know that the Celtics could be making some bench upgrades this trade deadline season. As we get closer and closer, the Celtics will be eyeing those bench upgrades, possibly using that Grant Williams TPE, maybe even using those second round picks. And there is a guy that the Celtics are rumored to be interested in, and we'll break that down, going over how likely I think it is for the Boston Celtics to land certain player, and if not, some other players that the Celtics could go after. All of this and more on this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Veliz, but before we get into any Boston Celtics content, I like to say that roughly around 80%, 79.2% of you guys that watch our videos are not subscribed, and we'd greatly appreciate it if you guys hit that big old red subscribe button and join the Celtics Digest family. We're getting so close to our goal of 3,000 subscribers, so if you want to make sure you stay up to date on everything Boston Celtics, news, trades, rumors, live streams, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as we are the place to get Celtics content. But let's dive into the news at hand today. So make sure to grab a snack and get ready to go, as this is going to be a jam-packed episode. But before we get into any of the Boston Celtics actual news today, I would like to say a special shout out to Eric Montross, as we rest in peace and honor him today, as our thoughts and prayers are with the Montross family. He passed away at the age of 52. He was a former Celtic, drafted 9th overall in the 1994 draft from UNC, and he averaged 10 points, was on the all-rookie team, played with some other teams in the NBA, but it is just a sad thing to see an ex-Celtic pass away at such a young age, especially due to cancer. We wish his family the best of luck. But let's dive into the news at hand, talking about the Celtics upgrading their bench. And yes, the Boston Celtics are here, and they are a dominant team, top of the Eastern Conference, 20-5, and they've had the best starting lineup, I think, in the NBA, with Jrue Holiday, Derrick White, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps, Porzingis, Jayson, Tatum. When they are all healthy, they are so impactful. But even guys have stepped up for those who have been injured. We've seen Kristaps Porzingis go out for a little bit of time, and we've seen, Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum has missed some games here and there, and guys like Sam Hauser and Al Horford have really stepped up to the plate for the Boston Celtics, making it a nice 7-man rotation. But the Celtics will need some other bench help to help them get through the playoffs with some other mismatches. They've had guys like Payton Pritchard who have been solid in some games but haven't looked the greatest throughout, but I think he will find his rhythm eventually, and they also have that Grant Williams TPE that they can use. So we'll be looking and talking about what the Celtics can get for upgrades and a player that they are interested in. So as you guys can see from the NBA Central, the Boston Celtics will actively search for bench help on the trade market, and this was per Shams Charania, who's talking it on the Run It Back FanDuel TV show, and he basically was mentioning after the Orlando Magic game that he's mentioned this in the past, but the Celtics could be very active on the trade market for a bench piece to help them out, a nice bench center or even a bench point guard. Whatever the Celtics are looking for, they are going to be using a lot of talent they have. Like I mentioned, they have some second round picks that they got from last year's draft as well. Brad Stevens had mentioned that there was only roughly around 2 second round picks and not a lot of draft capital the Boston Celtics had, but by trading back in last year's draft, they were able to accumulate a bunch of second round picks for this team, and they can move off of 2 or 3 second round picks with a dead salary to get a player, or even just using those second round picks with the TPE to get said player. It could help out the Boston Celtics tremendously. Now, I know personally for me, I think the Celtics bench upgrade that they need is a backup center. We've seen Luke Kornet be effective for the Boston Celtics recently, but at the start of the season and into the preseason, he wasn't the greatest Celtic for the team, and a lot of fans were starting to hate on him. He's gotten better and feeling more comfortable in his role 20-25 games into the season, but as we've seen him have that injury, and even with the Celtics being shorthanded versus the Orlando Magic 2 games ago when they had no Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis, the Boston Celtics had to use the likes of Lamar Stevens, Oshae Brissett, neemias, and those guys held their own, and I'm a huge fan of all 3 of those guys. I really like what they bring to the Celtics. I think they all bring a little bit of their own flair and style. I think the Celtics need a more solidified backup big than a guy like those guys or even Luke Kornet. We've seen neemias struggle with the fouling. We've seen Lamar Stevens struggle with his shot a little bit, and same thing with Oshae Brissett. They haven't really been able to find their rhythm on the offensive side. They've been able to help with the offensive rebounds, been able to help with the defense, but I think we need another big man to help us out. Some people might think we need another guard to replace Payton Pritchard, but I think Payton Pritchard will eventually find his rhythm and be an effective scorer for the Boston Celtics. But the guy that apparently the Celtics are being interested in and other teams are being interested in is Isaiah Stewart. The Boston Celtics, Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Dallas Mavericks have all shown great interest in Isaiah Stewart, and I think he would be a solid piece for the Boston Celtics. Personally, I really liked Isaiah Stewart on the Detroit Pistons when he was first drafted there as their starting center when they had Miles Plumlee at the end of his career, and they were kind of, running him and Isaiah Stewart was the main guy. Then obviously they've gotten guys like Jaylen Duran. They've obviously gotten guys like Marvin Bagley, even James Wiseman, who've gotten into that rotation to try to fluctuate with Isaiah Stewart. And it's kind of made it harder for Isaiah Stewart to find a very strong role in this Detroit Pistons team. Especially with them being young and having a slow start to the season, they could be looking to move off some of their young pieces. Now, the Boston Celtics being interested in Isaiah Stewart would be a great piece to add, as he is a great rim protector, great rim defender, and could score at the rim. Kind of what the Celtics need for a nice center. But the only problem is with Isaiah Stewart is his contract. If we want to talk about that, we can look at this tweet from Keith Smith saying that Stewart is an interesting trade target for Boston and he'd be a great addition. The challenge? He's PPP restricted, poison pill provision. That means trading for him is difficult. Boston would have to match over $13 million in salary to bring him in, and that is tricky for the Boston Celtics. He is on a $5 million contract, but since he is poison pill aggravated with his extension, it will mark up to around $15 million, and that will be difficult for the Celtics to be able to trade for. Obviously, a guy in Payton Pritchard is also poison pill activated, so his contract would go up to around $7 million if he is traded. But a guy like throwing in Payton Pritchard and some other young pieces like Banton, Brissett, and all that to make the contracts work, I don't know is necessarily the greatest thing for the Boston Celtics. Even throwing in a guy like Al Horford who makes $10 million would make something necessary to get this deal done, but I think that is not something that the Celtics should consider, as Al Horford has been tremendous on both sides of the floor for the Boston Celtics, a great veteran locker room leader, and I think his presence is necessary for this Boston Celtics team. So ultimately, would I like Isaiah Stewart to be on the Boston Celtics? Yes, 1,000%. But do I think the likelihood of it happening is very, very slim? But I do think that the Boston Celtics, even though they are talking to the Detroit Pistons about possibly getting Isaiah Stewart, they could be talking about some other guys as well with the Detroit Pistons. If we want to look at the Detroit Pistons roster here, these are all the guys that have played at least 1 minute for the Detroit Pistons this season. And if you guys don't know, the Detroit Pistons are at the bottom of the league and are on a 22-game lose streak. Detroit Pistons are one of the worst teams that we've ever seen in the NBA, and they are just atrocious. Can't find anything, and it's not even because they have a lot of injuries. They've had a little bit of injuries here and there. Guys like Jaylen Duran have gone down. Bojan Bogdanovic, their veteran leader, wasn't there at the start of the season. But they are just very young and experienced, and they don't have a true leader. They have good guys. Obviously, you can see Cade Cunningham, Bojan Bogdanovic, and this is filtered by minutes to show you how impactful these guys are for their team. Isaiah Stewart, Jaylen Duran, Oscar Thompson, Killian Hayes, Jaden Ivey. Those are their main guys that they're trying to build their culture around. But then you've got guys like Isaiah Livers, Marvin Bagley, even Marcus Sasser, Kevin Knox, James Wiseman, who are still young guys that are trying to fit in and try to get into their system, try to find out their role. But then you also got some veteran guys too. You got guys like Alec Burks. You got guys like Joe Harris. You got a guy like Bojan Bogdanovic, who does get a lot of minutes, but those are their veteran leaders. They're guys that they have on their roster to kind of instill the leadership and actual winning into the locker room. But the Detroit Pistons haven't been doing that type of winning. So could the Detroit Pistons be looking to move off of some of these guys? I think that the Boston Celtics calling up and even possibly trying to get in a guy in a guard position, looking at a guy like Alec Burks or Monte Morris, even though Monte Morris has been hurt for the Detroit Pistons and hasn't played for them, I think he would be a good upgrade for the Boston Celtics at the guard position if they were to look for him. Even a guy like Alec Burks, who's a solid shooter for this Detroit Pistons team, I think he could be a valuable piece for the Celtics to get. A guy that I definitely think would be off the table for the Detroit Pistons, but a guy that I would love the Boston Celtics to go out and get is the big man in Jaylen Duran. I know he's been banged up the last couple of weeks. He's had some ankle issues into the season, multiple times into the season as well. But I think he is a valuable young center that could do really good things for the Boston Celtics, and he's on a $3 million contract. So the Boston Celtics could fit Jaylen Duran into the Grant Williams TPE, throwing in a lot of second-round picks and first-round picks to get that value up. Ultimately, though, I don't see them getting after Isaiah Stewart, as it takes a lot of money, and I don't see the Detroit Pistons giving up on Jaylen Duran, even though he's had some injury history, just because he's been their most impactful center, and he is one of their true young focal pieces that can be very dominant for this Detroit Pistons team. Some other guys that I think the Celtics could go after with their Grant Williams TPE to make some bench additions would be a guy in Jalen McDaniels from the Toronto Raptors. I think he would be a solid wing/small ball four for the Celtics that could help out in defending some nice wings for in the playoffs, and could also be a solid 5 to 6 point per game scorer if the Celtics were to need him there to help him out. And he fits nicely into the Grant Williams TPE. We also talked about a guy that I've loved as well in Andre Drummond. I think he would be a perfect fit for the Boston Celtics, fitting into that Grant Williams TPE and also helping out the Boston Celtics as the Chicago Bulls are ultimately looking to be a little bit of a worse of a team. They might be looking to get rid of a guy in Andre Drummond to sell him to a contender for a nice little young piece or maybe some second round picks. Ultimately, though, I think the Celtics will make some bench upgrades, and I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down below who you guys think the Boston Celtics will get for bench upgrades. Do you guys think they'll go after a guy like Isaiah Stewart? Do you think that's actually physically possible? Or do you think they'll go after a lesser guy using the Grant Williams TPE, trying to get someone to fit into that $6.2 million? Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Celtics Digest. And if you guys are still not subscribed at this point in the video, what are you guys doing? Make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the family. We'd greatly appreciate it. I'm Bruce Velez. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.